As the setup of PyCharm is done, let's talk about the most important statement, which is the print statement or the print function. And this is used to print the output of a variable, of a string or anything in the console or in log files. When we use PyCharm, we'll mostly see the output in the console, not in the log files. We'll typically see the print output in log files when we are doing some debugging in production or pre-prod or any other environment, when you are planning to deploy the code in higher environments. One of the major reasons to use print function or print statement is to do debugging, because we can actually see what is happening by printing that particular occurrence in the console. Let's take a look at various ways that we can use a print function. The first one is you can print a text like welcome to www.3iarm.in, or you can put this entire string in a variable. In this case, the name of the variable is var, and then you can print that variable also. This is the most rudimentary way to print something, to put something in the console. Then we can use a mix of variable and string also. So let's say we want to print a report and I want to see the report in our console. So at the initial portion is the value. So we are saying that print this value of id is colon, this is a string, followed by the order id, and order id is a variable. So what would happen is that in the output we'll see the string followed by order id. Similarly, we can basically have multiple strings and multiple variables, one after the other. So the first thing is order id, then the variable order id, then order price followed by the variable total price. So what would happen is it would print the order id, then the actual value of that order id, and then it will print order price followed by the actual value of the order price, which is there in this variable, which is total price. If we want, you can print it in new lines also. For example, here if I use /n, which is a new line character, what would happen is that this order price would be printed in the new line. Now this is a very important one, and here we are using an additional function called format. So here what we are doing, this is basically dynamic printing, and I'm mentioning that total order price is colon followed by curly braces 0. So this is the 0th variable. Then items followed by curly braces, and we have 1 in the curly braces. So this is the first variable. And if we use these curly braces, we'll have to use format. Now what would happen here is that the 0th place would be replaced by the value of the variable total underscore price, and the 1 here, the value of 1 with curly braces, would be replaced by the second variable or value of the second variable, which is QTY or quantity here. So this is one of the ways of using format. Then we have like this also, instead of 0 and 1, we can mention the actual variable also, which is TOT underscore AMT, and here in format I'm passing the value in total amount. Likewise, we can pass the value of the variable in total amount. Now the difference here is that between this 0, 1 and the name of the variable is that we have to pass certain value to this variable. So in this case, in the first one, I'm passing 230.65 to total amount, and in the second time, I'm passing total underscore price variable to this total amount. And whatever value is there, it will be printed here. Now, one very important thing is that all values are converted to strings before being printed. Even if you are passing decimal, even if you are passing integer or anything else, everything would be converted to strings before showing it in the console. So let's do some hands-on. So this is the program that I just created in the previous topic while setting up PyCharm, and I'll define some variables here, and I'll use this program throughout this entire exercise. First, let me define some order ID, and so this is the order ID, and then let's say order price. So this is order price, and then order description. Let's say I mention iPhone, and order quantity I mention as 2. So these are the variables that we have defined. Now what will I do is, let me define a few other constant variables also, like let's say var underscore string, and I'll mention this particular string, and which is there in var string. So now let us go ahead and use the print function. Now before doing that, it is a very good practice to document each and everything. If you are from application programming background, you know that the way to document in your program is using comments. And Python also, of course, provides comments. There can be single line comment and multi-line comment. So for multi-line comment, we'll have to use 3 quotes, single quotes. So this is a multi-line comment. Whatever I put inside of these opening 3 quotes and closing 3 quotes, all of them would be considered as comments. So as you can see, I have 3 lines, and all these 3 lines are being considered as comment. Now single line comment, you use hash, and what will I do here is I will mention print function hands on. Single line comments are created using the hash or shebang, whatever you might want to call it. This is how we create comments, and very good for documentation. All right, so let us go ahead and use print function in all the forms that I have just shown. First, I will print welcome. So now if I execute this, it will show me the output at the bottom. So what will I do is, either you do a right click and then click on run teenayam underscore python underscore basics.py, or I can click on this play button, and after the execution is done, it is showing welcome here. So that means it is working. Let me remove this folder, this particular split. So just click on the project again and it will go away. Or we can reduce the size also. Let's do that. Okay, so this printing is done, and I can reduce the size of the output. So this is the first print statement. Or else I can print a variable also, and I want to print the var underscore str. So if you type underscore, it will automatically pop up and then you can select. So this is the advantage of using IDE, because it gives a lot of shortcuts and a lot of features which makes programming much easier. Now if I print, it should print the welcome message and whatever is there in the variable var underscore str, which is welcome to www.3iam.in. So if I press play, as you can see, it is showing you both the output welcome and then followed by var string. And the third one is, let me print using both variable and string. You can use either single quote or double quote. So I'm saying order ID is followed by colon, and I'll be using the order ID column, or the variable rather. And if I execute, it should show me the order ID. So it is showing order ID is colon. So now it is concatenating the string and the variable. Both of them are being concatenated. And if we want, we can concatenate multiple values also, multiple variables also. So let me just copy this, and I'll remove this order ID, the string, and let me put order ID followed by order description. And in the output, I should be able to see this order ID followed by iPhone. So as you can see, this is the order ID and this is iPhone. So value of both these variables are getting printed. That's how we can use only variables, string along with variables, or only strings. Now let's say I want to mention order ID space colon space, because if you don't put space, so it will be concatenated without any spaces. And then again, I'll start with space and then price followed by space order price. So if I execute this, it is showing me order ID followed by space and then price followed by space, etc. Now let's use the format statement or the format function. Now why would I use format function? Because it's very difficult to create print out statements like this. So giving individual variables one after the other and then typing comma, etc. So what will I do? I'll mention the same thing, order ID followed by space and then curly braces 0, so which is the 0th element, and then 2 spaces price and curly braces first element. Now what I'll have to do is that I'll have to use dot and then format, and then order ID and order price. So basically what would happen is that you'll have to make sure that these variables match with whatever comment you have put. Otherwise it might be a little confusing, because if you put order price here, then order ID would be that it will be considered as the 0th element, and order ID would be shown as order price, and order price would be shown as order ID, which obviously is something that we do not want. Now execute it and we can see the output as it is. Now what will I do is that I'll comment all these sections. So what you can do, you can select all of them. Either you can use command / in Mac or control / in Windows. So now if I execute, I'll see only one output, so which is this one. So this is the first way to write a format statement, and let me use the format statement again. Now instead of order ID 0 and 1, I'll mention ID and then I'll mention amount. What I can do here is that I can actually remove this and mention the actual value in, let's say, ID equal to whatever value we had, maybe 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and amount equal to 23.45. So this is another way. So here I'm passing hard-coded values, not the variable, which is okay, and it should give me the same output. I can actually, instead of hard coding, I can pass the value also, order ID and then order price, and it should print the same output as previous one. Now here the difference is that I am not using the hard-coded value, I'm passing the variable. Now if I execute, it is showing me the same output. So this is how we can use print statement. So this is the print function. So we are done with print function and I have commented all of them. Now let me go ahead and start the next one, which is basically the input function. It might not be that useful in our hands-on or maybe in your programming journey also, but again it is good to know, because what it does is that it takes input from an user. So you can ask the user to type something and that would be put in a variable, like something like this customer name. You can mention type your name, and whatever name is typed, that will be stored in this cust_name variable, and then we can print the cust_name, which will be basically your name. And the input is always string type, remember that. Just like print, in print what happens is that before showing it in the console, everything is converted to string, and it is opposite. Before putting the value inside of the variable, the data is always string type. And if you are expecting something else, so if you let's say are taking input as integer, you should convert that to integer. So let's say mention input, type your name, and whatever you type would be stored in the name variable, and let's say total years of experience. And now before going further, I'll print name and total experience, but I also want to print the data type of name, and you know how we can get the data type using type. So I'll be using that type function here, and I also want to print the data type of total experience. So one of them is integer and the other one is string, but when I'm taking the input, you'll see that the data type is actually string in both the cases. So now if I execute this, it will ask me to type your name, and here you can type the name, press enter. It is asking what's your total experience, let's say 15 years, and as you can see, it is printing the data type of name, which is class string, and obviously it is printing the name, and data type of total experience, which we had mentioned 15, but it has also been taken as string, and then it is showing us 15. And how do you convert it? You convert, let's say, total experience int. You will have to use the int function, right? And here I can mention total experience, and now if I type it, it should show me the data type as integer. So let's try this again. Execute this, and it is waiting for me to input something. So let's say input the name as Python. What's your total experience? 50 plus, so let's 50. Now what it is showing, the data type of total experience is first string, then I converted it to integer. Let me just increase it a bit. Yeah, so now as you can see, the name is basically Python, the data type of total experience is string, and then I changed it to total experience int, and it has become int. So this is wrong, actually I should change it to total experience underscore int. So these are the basic two functions that I wanted to start with. Print is something that, as I said, I'll be using all the time. I'll not use input anymore, I guess, at least in this particular section. It is good to know that there's a function called input which is used to take user input. So let's go to the next topic.